Hi everybody, welcome back to Self-Care Sunday. This is episode 11, so thank you for joining me today. We're going to start out with our usual, a virtue from the Family Virtues Guide, and then we're going to move on to the next portion, which is kind of a relaxation practice, coping strategy, whatever you want to call it, choose your own adventure. But we'll get started. So, this is the book we're using. If you haven't noticed already, here it is. And then the virtue that we're working on today, this Sunday, is determination. So, we'll start out with, what is determination? Determination is focusing your energy and efforts on a particular task and then sticking with it until it is done. Determination is using your willpower to do something even when it isn't easy. When you are determined to do something, you know that it is very important. Determination means you care about doing something so much that even when it is really hard or you are being tested, you still keep going. And I think that it's really interesting that the root word of determination is determine. So it's not something that is just sort of nebulous. It's something that you've decided that you want to do and that you need to do. And then you take action steps to get there. So that's a little bit about determination. And then why practice determination? Without determination, many things don't get done. When it becomes difficult, people who are not determined give up. When they need help, they don't get help, they just stop. Without determination, people would wait and wait, or depend on someone cheering or pushing them in order to get anything done. Without determination, important things can be neglected. When people are determined, even the hardest thing becomes a challenge they are willing to accept. They get important things done. They grow strong. They do things which matter in the world. So keep in mind that determination isn't just this absolute willpower to push through anything and everything. Determination is a tool to help you get to where you want to go. So if it's not something that's important to you, you don't have to be determined about it. But if it is something that is really important to you, that's a really good time to use determination. How do you practice it? You practice determination by first deciding what is important to you. Then you use your willpower to make it happen. You finish what you start. You deal with anything that gets in your way, and then you go back to what you were doing. You keep going even if something starts to distract you. You stay on purpose. You get help when you need it, because what you are doing is too important to give up on. If the way you are doing something is not working for you, you figure out how to change things. When you get sad or discouraged, stop for a moment. Think about what you need in order to meet your goal. Then start again. It feels good when you meet your goals. Yeah, it's okay to stop. You can still be determined and taking a break. Signs of success. Congratulations, you are practicing determination when you believe what you are doing is important, when you set goals for yourself, when you focus your attention on what you are doing, when you resist being distracted, when you keep going even if it gets difficult, and when you ask for help when you need it. Also, when you finish what you've started. Keep trying. You need more practice for determination when you don't believe that what you are doing matters. When you decide that you can only try. When you procrastinate. When you stop when things get difficult. When you fail to ask for help when you need it. And when you don't finish what you set out to do. Yeah. And sometimes it's okay to not finish what we set out to do if we find out that our goal actually is different than we thought it was. But if you are really determined to get something done, you should be finishing it all the way through. Our affirmation for this week for determination is, I have determination. I set goals and keep going until I achieve them. I get things done. I stay on purpose. And I like that. It doesn't say on task. It says on purpose. The idea that we're really working towards something specific. And it has a purpose in our life. And we're working towards that specific purpose. So, next we're going to move on to a little practice for the day. I didn't want to just show you guys determination and throw that virtue out there and just leave you hanging with that, because sometimes determination can be really challenging. Water break. All right, she's gonna keep going. Good, stay hydrated. That's Minnie. She's my pet rat. I didn't want to just throw you guys into determination without some skills and some strategies and some coping mechanisms to kind of help you through, because sometimes determination can be really, really challenging. It can feel like we have to give up, and it can feel like we're not doing enough, or that we can't do something just because, like, it gets so overwhelming. And oftentimes when we're determined, it's about something that's really, truly important to us. So it's really hard to be determined about something that doesn't matter to you. So in that kind of vein, I guess, I wanted to share something with you guys today called tapping. It's gonna seem a little bit out there if you're not in, like, the crunchy circles, but just give it a try. It's been used for people with PTSD with really great effects. There's a lot of research on it. You can absolutely go find that. But tapping is kind of a method of getting through these really, really difficult moments. And it is a way to connect your mind and your body and center yourself back to where you are so that you can focus on what you need going forward. So I actually started doing tapping when I was very, very young. And so because of that, it feels like more of an intuitive thing for me than I feel like it would be for other people. So I looked up the steps on the internet, and I thought it was really interesting the way it broke it down. So the first step that it has is identify the issue. So for this, I don't recommend picking something that's like a complete phobia or a situation that feels so intensely emotionally overwhelming that you, like, can't think about what we're doing. So it might be helpful to choose something that's a little bit more current and a little bit easier to digest. So for example, you could think about maybe you have an interview coming up that you're nervous for. You could think about you have a first date that you're nervous for, or maybe you have been feeling really sad lately and you don't know why, and then you start questioning yourself. So there's just some things like that, or maybe you have a issue with a friend that you're thinking a lot about. So think about something in your life that is just a little bit uncomfortable. That's the first one, is identify an issue. Yeah. So think about that issue for yourself. And don't go too far down that path, but just kind of identify it. If you can give it a name, even just a simple one. If you want to give it a literal name like Bob, you can do that. If you want to give it an emotion name like anger, you can do that. Just give it a name. And then we'll move on to testing the intensity of that. What is that feeling? How big is that feeling? Is that feeling at a 1, like it's very slight, doesn't really interfere with your day? Or is it closer to a 10? So find a place on that scale. Where is that emotion on that scale? Does it feel really overwhelming, or is it really small, or somewhere in between? So pick a number that feels about right. And this doesn't have to be super specific. Don't panic about picking the right number. Just a general guideline is good. And then we'll move on to what they called the setup. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a statement for ourselves. And this statement, it has 2 parts. It's acknowledging the issue, and it's accepting yourself despite the problem. So the first one, acknowledging the issue. This isn't a statement about other people. This is a statement about you and how you're feeling. So for example, if I have a hard time in restaurants, right? Restaurants make me really uncomfortable. I get very overwhelmed by the noise. I might say, I feel very overwhelmed by restaurants. I know that I feel very overwhelmed by restaurants, right? And then the second portion is accepting yourself despite the problem. So sometimes you can accept the problem, and that'll kind of help you accept yourself, but sometimes that doesn't feel natural. So accepting yourself despite the problem. So if I say, I know that I feel very overwhelmed in restaurants, but that's okay because I can make a different choice, right? Or, but that's okay because I can get through hard moments. Or, but that's okay, just as a statement, but that's okay, right? Any of those are really good. So that's one example. So as you come up with this statement for yourself, acknowledge the issue and then accept yourself despite the problem. And once you have that little statement, we can move on to the next part. So we're going to put our statement to the side for a second, and we're going to start with the actual tapping. And I think it's called emotion feeling technique, EFT, I believe. And it's a tapping sequence. So the idea is that in some cultures, there's this idea that you have different meridians in your body of energy. We don't have to go down that route. All you need to know is that you have your body in space, and touching different parts of your body can help bring you back when you're having a hard moment and you feel like you're really in your head about something and you're really freaked out about it. So you can start by tapping the top of your head, and you can do this kind of gently. You can do it with your middle finger or your pointer finger, whatever feels good, maybe a couple fingers. So tap the top of your head and just notice how that feels. And then we're going to move down to the forehead. And tap your forehead and notice how that feels. And move right over one eye. You can pick whatever eye you want. Sometimes it's easier to do the one that, like, I'm right-handed, so I'm doing my right eye. And then to the side, kind of by your temple. And we don't need to do this too hard. Just enough to feel it. And then under the eye. And the upper lip. And the lower lip. And if any of these places, if you start tapping them and you feel a lot of things coming up and it feels like it's too much, you can absolutely skip over them. Or if they feel like a good spot you're noticing, you can take a little extra time there. And once we've done our chin, we're going to go down to our collarbone. I know you can't really see my collarbone, but it's right around here. And then this one wasn't on the list, but I've always done this, and I find it really calming, like right where your heart is. Tapping right over your heart. And then to your side. We don't need to get up in the armpit, but kind of down on the side a little bit. So that's the kind of tapping routine, moving from our head to our side here. And if that feels too complicated, don't worry, it'll get easier with time. And if that's overwhelming, I'll go into another method later. So we're going to start at the top, and we're going to acknowledge our issue, and then we're going to accept ourselves despite the problem. So I feel really overwhelmed in restaurants, but I can make a different choice. And then we'll say it again at the next place. And you can say it out loud, sometimes that helps. If you want to say it in your head, you can. And we'll move over to the next spot. And just repeat that to yourself a couple of times. Sometimes it helps to do it once in each spot. You can follow along with the tapping. I'm not going to say mine again, so you guys can have space to do yours. Down to the collarbone. And down to the chest. And to the side. And then we can repeat that a couple of times. So when you get into a moment where you're feeling kind of overwhelmed, or you have a fear, or you have some anxiety, or you're noticing a feeling that is really uncomfortable, this can be a really great way to acknowledge that and to connect back to your body. So the final step is to just take a little brief scan, and we rated our feeling before on a 1 to 10. Where does that lie now? It's okay if it's the same. It's okay if it is even, a little bit more or a little bit less. Just notice. Did that kind of bring it down a little bit? And if it did, this might be something that can really help you over time, so it might be a good thing to return back to. Yeah. So once we've noticed that, those are the steps. The first step is identify the issue. The second step is test the intensity, so that's that scale of 1 to 10. The third one is the setup, so finding a phrase that acknowledges the issue and is accepting yourself or the problem. And then the tapping as we're saying that phrase, and then noticing again how we feel. So that's one that you can do. Another thing, if that feels like too much to remember in the moment, that's totally valid. You can just take your hands and put them kind of on your shoulders like this. They don't have to be up on the shoulders, but kind of almost more on the chest. And you can do that whichever way feels more comfortable to you. It doesn't matter which hand is over the other. And you can start to tap on the opposite ones. And sometimes this just self-soothes a little bit, this tapping. And also another thing that it's doing is it's sending signals on both sides of your body to both sides of your, kind of like towards your brain. So using both sides of your body can be really grounding, and it can help recenter you. So just tapping there. Another really good one is humming. I know that's kind of the last thing that you're thinking of when you're in this space where things are really overwhelming, but humming can be really great. And so if you want to rock back and forth a little bit and hum a little bit if you have the space to do so. The humming, the reason that I suggest that is because your voice is really closely connected to your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve, I've talked about this a little bit before, your vagus nerve regulates the states of fight, flight, freeze, and rest and digest. And if you're activating your vagus nerve by humming, then typically it brings us back in closer towards that state of rest and digest. So it's okay to be in these other states, it's just sometimes not as great to get stuck in them. So sometimes, yeah, just hum a little song, just hum a little tune. You guys want me to hum you a little tune right now? I don't know, I can't see any comments right now, the way I have it set up. Let's see. You can sing too. Sometimes having the more open vocal space helps. Just see what that feels like. Yeah. So when you're being determined this week, if you run into a hard time, those are some options and opportunities for you to take advantage of, kind of coming back to yourself and seeing what the next step might be. And I think, yeah, that's everything that I had for today. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. If you've never tried this before, let me know how it went. I'd love to hear a little bit about the comments. Yeah, if you've made it this far, maybe leave a like so I can see how many people are watching. That'd be awesome. And on that note, I hope that you all have a lovely rest of your evening, and good night.